Hi Internet, what I have for you today is the Pentacon 135mm 2.8 vintage lens. And I'm going to demonstrate how to repair the aperture blades if they are stuck. Now this lens is okay, so the aperture actually does work, and that's because I already repaired it. But since there are so few aperture blade repair videos on the internet, I thought, well, let's do it again, and maybe I can help other people how to do it based on my own experience. The ideal tools to use are a very little screwdriver, some tweezers, something with a hook, a little hook, and if you have hold of it or you want to buy one, a lens wrench. If you do lens repair more often, it's a very wise thing to buy one of these. It's about, well, let's say $30-40 or euros or whatever, and these tools are really cheap. A set of these tweezers cost $10-15, and same thing for these kind of sets, but these are the ones that you might need. You don't actually need them, but it's handy to have them. Right. Well, there are excellent videos on how to dismantle or disassemble a Pentacon 135mm lens, so I'm not going in depth on that process. I'll link other videos in the description down here. But there's a very little screw on the side of the front element. You need to extend the hood, and that way you can screw it off. And now you see you already have access to the aperture blades here in the inside. If you turn the lens around, you use the screwdriver to unscrew the 4 screws holding the lens mount. There's number 4. There we go. Now we can lift the lens mount of the lens. And this is how it looks like inside. I'll come to that later when we reassemble the lens. And this is the aperture ring that comes off like so. Oh, hold on, oh yeah, that's useful to know. There's a little pin and a little notch on the side that's over here. Don't know if you can see it, but you have to look it up. You find it yourself. And so that's this little notch over here that needs to go over a pin on the lens. Right. Next thing to do is to unscrew the rear element, like so. There we go. And now we have access to the aperture blades from this side and from the front side. What you don't need to do is to dismantle the helicoid. I don't know if it's the correct word, so let me know if you're native English in the comments. But I thought the helicoid is the part that is taking care of the focus, and it's a nasty job if you just unscrew it until it falls out, and having to put it back and maintain the ability to focus to infinity. If you've done it before, you recognize what I'm saying. So avoid doing that. It's not necessary. So keep it intact. Right. Next thing to do is to take out the aperture mechanism, and therefore you need the lens wrench. It's clever to extend the lens to maximum length, so it would focus to the shortest distance, because then this little pin disappears inside the lens, and you can set it on the table without damaging the pin, otherwise it sticks out from the bottom. Well, a lens wrench, if you don't know how it works, I always keep this part fixed on the end of the rods, and then you can adjust it to the width that you need. There's two little notches over here, and you need to position the pins of the lens wrench in this notch, in both of them. Then I fix the lens wrench, and then I can unscrew it. And most of the time it's only needed to well, for loosening it, because now once it's loose, I can just remove it like this. It's a bit quicker. I must say, when there's glass over here, be careful with these sharp pins, of course, but in this case it's no problem to take that risk. Is it out already? There we are. So now I can take out the aperture mechanism. Mind this ring, which is over here. It's loosely sitting here, so you don't need it, but it might fall out if you don't pay attention to it. So this is the aperture mechanism. Here's this pin that controls the aperture, and it's connected with a string to this screw over here. First time I did it, I loosened this screw, I removed this screw, but it's a hell of a job to put it back, and later I discovered that I can just remove the spring over here and just remove it from this pin. So it stays here. That's something to keep in mind, because you don't want to have it fold or damage in any other way. Now the next step is to get access to the blades and the mechanism that is attached to this pin. Therefore we need the lens wrench again. Loosen it, and here are similar notches. So I adapt the lens wrench like so. And now this pin is well, you can't hide it anymore, so it's really important to be careful not to put much pressure on the assembly. Having said that, the assembly itself is very light, so it's not a problem to lay it down like this. But if you're handling it, it's important to pay attention to it. So here is in fact the same thing what you do with the lens wrench. Once you got it loose, you don't need it anymore, and you can remove it with your fingers. Well, whatever is quicker, you'll find it out. I like to do it like this. always wanted to be a gynecologist, so... Oh, what a bad joke. The joke writer is fired right now. Okay. Now we have access to the aperture mechanism. And the things, I mean, if I turn it down, it all falls out. But what I want to do is remove this ring. And that ring has the pin attached. You can see it if I take the pin and I push it upwards. There goes the ring. But I want to remove it with the tweezers. Like so, there we are. So this is the ring that controls the aperture blades. And actually what it does is all these notches hold a pin of one aperture blade. And let me try to demonstrate it in more detail. So the aperture blades are now lying loose in the mechanism. So, well, you can just turn it around and have them fall out. So it's empty now. And these blades, no, I'm not going to touch this with my fingers because my fingers contain grease. So I prefer to handle it with tweezers. But as you can see, I hope you can see it, each aperture blade has two very little pins. The pin on the top, no, it's the bottom one actually, and the pin on the top, which is here. And you can imagine that if this pin is in a little hole, I can turn the aperture blade by moving this pin. It escapes. No need to be scared for being in a video. Little blade, just cooperate. And these little holes, you see them over here. So you see holes that hold the pins of the aperture blade. And how to know which is the upside or the downside is that the pin that is to the edge, that indicates the upper side, and the pin that is a little more to the middle, that means that you're looking to the bottom side of the aperture blade. So when you put it back, you take it with the tweezers. Come on. And then you, hold on, yes, need something to point. So this little pin here, which is here, needs to fall in this little hole. We do that. There we are. Then you see how it works, right? So this works like a hinge, and this is the hinging point. And when I reinstall, just do it for one blade, when I reinstall this ring, the control ring, just a word that I make up right now, let's call it the control ring. When this ring turns, you see the blade turning. And this ring turns via the pin on the bottom side. So it turns and then it hinges the aperture blade inwards or outwards. Now, the trick is to arrange it that all the aperture blades are in the right place and the pins fall in these notches. So when you turn it, all the aperture blades make the same movement. But first we have to clean the aperture blades, because that was the problem. If there's a problem with your aperture, that means your blades are dirty. Right. I'll just prepare them. What I use for cleaning the blades are wipes like this. And it's such a tight stack that it comes handy that you have tweezers, because that's the, the way to not spill them. You just take out one. And the other thing that I use is lighter fluid. Lighter fluid is excellent to remove grease. So I spray a little lighter fluid on the cloth. There we are. Take one blade. And gently wipe it clean. And it's very important that the cloth doesn't pick up the aperture blade while you're moving this way, because then you can fold the aperture blade and that's a serious damage. Okay, once you have cleaned all the individual blades, it's time to put them back in the assembly. And okay, I've explained it before how you do it with one element. So here we go, and it's a matter of, the tip is to hold the tweezers vertically, so you can drop it in more easily. So there it is, it lies in the mechanism, and this was the pivoting point. And what you need to do is to hinge it to the most inward position. So you free up the next hole that is here for the next blade. There you go. Drop it in, align it with the hole, so the pin is in the hole here. And now comes our hook device. We use that to lift the previous blade a little bit and then slide it over the new one. And with the next one, the new one, I need to help it a little bit to keep it on top. The first one on top of the new one. And now I slide that one inward maximum. Clumsy English, but bear with me, I'm Dutch. Next one, drop it in. Turn it inwards. Lift the previous one up. While turning the previous one outwards to make room for the new one. Oh, it drops in a little bit too wild. Here comes the next one. It's on its back. No, it's right. It's correctly oriented. There we go. Pick it up. The pin is in the hole. Lift the previous one up just enough to make room for the new one to slide under. Oh, yep, there we go. Now turn the new one inwards. Just beware that it doesn't slide over the previous one, so I need to help it a little bit. There we go. Now the next hole is free. Lift it up. I'm sorry, I was looking at my screen of my overhead camera over there. Lift the previous one. And the ones who are the ones that are already in place, I can move them outward. And if you push them outward, you reach the ring here. So you see, it is flush with the opening of the ring, in fact. So that way you can make room for manipulating the ones that you're working with. Turn it inwards. And now it gets stuck because the first one is already here. So I need to help this one as well. Lift it up. So now it slides over the first one. Turn it inwards. Lift the previous one. And now comes the most tricky bit, because the last one has to go under this one, the previous one, and over the first one. It's not that difficult, but here you have to you have two battlefields, in fact. So it is over. It's over the first one, that is okay. And now I need to lift the previous one on top of the last one. And now they're all neatly in place. So I easily turn inside the ring to make them, to position them exactly under the same corner, on the same angle. So now they are lying in the assembly. Not quite. This one is being a little bit annoying. But now they are all, oh, it keeps jumping. Well, it's okay. Right. Next thing to do is to take this ring and drop it back in the assembly. And here is a hole. And that's the hole where the pin goes through, and the hole limits the movement of the pin, which is necessary to limit between 2.8 and what is it, 22. And like I demonstrated before, the pins, the upper pins of the aperture blades fall in these notches over here. And that is also quite tricky, because you have to be lucky. And also, oh, that's important to know, is that the aperture blades are now in the 2.8 position, so the most wide open position. So the pin has to go in the same position, which is on the left, because when you close it, you turn it to the right. If you insert it randomly or in the wrong position, these notches do not correspond with the correct pins on the aperture blades. So I have to drop it in with this pin on the left side of this opening. There we go. Just drop it in, and now I need to lift it up because the pin is sticking out on the bottom side. And now it's a matter of gently turning the ring until one by one, or if you're lucky, all at the same time, all these pins fall into the notches over here. So this one is correct. I'm missing this one. This one is good, this one is good, this one is good. So I'm missing 2 pins. And it's just a matter of very gently moving the ring to the left and right, and it seems that it starts working already, you see? So I am only missing this particular one here that I'm pointing at. This really concentrated work. Yeah, I think it is. No, not yet. There's a nasty one exactly over here. Actually, I think it's bent, because I don't know why it wouldn't drop in, which is bad news, because then I have to start all over again. No, it isn't. So sometimes you just have to be lucky and wiggle a bit, and I think it is okay. Now it's very important not to move it anymore or tilt it or whatever, because it will fall out. We need this cup, ring, whatever it's called, to lock it up. And I forgot to mention one handy tool that is handy now. It's another one of this set. So here's the one with the hook that I used, and this is the one with just a pointy end, and I can gently turn this so that the threads, and it's a very narrow thread, so that it catches. And just like normal filters on the front of your lens, if you turn it a little bit crooked, it goes a few turns and then it's got stuck because the threads don't line up. So sometimes it helps to turn it the wrong way until it aligns with the thread, the correct entry of the thread. Now it seems that I'm having it. Yes, it goes smoothly. There we go, there we go. Turn it with my fingers, and ultimately, well, and now I can turn it, because the ring and also the aperture blades are now locked up by this ring, and it seems to work. It seems to work. I'm very content. So the last thing is to tighten it up a little bit. There we go. So that's sorted. Look at that. Really nice, really nice. Okay. Turn it over. Reattach the string. And now it springs. Did I say string? I mean spring. Oh, this is so satisfying. Okay, no time to waste. Drop it back in the lens, and here in the lens is, oh, circus. Here's the opening that's needed for the pin, and also there is here is a notch, and it has to line up with this little pin over here inside, so you can never do it wrong. It can only go in one way. Oh, and the only thing you might do wrong is if you loosen up the inner ring with these 3 screws, you have to position it back in the same way, because if you turn it so the screws would be on the side of this, of these slots, the whole assembly would, the whole aperture ring assembly would be turned, and then you might not be able to close it all the way or open it all the way. So whenever you lose the ring, that's no problem, but if you put it back in exactly the same position. Right, there we go. Put it in the lens. Come on, little persuasion. Where is it? Maybe I should put this ring on first and then try it again. No. I'll put the ring back. Try it once more. Okay, I have to aim this notch to that pin. Come on. Need to be a little bit lucky, I think. Can't see it. There we go. Okay, so while holding it, just give it a test. Still working. Right. Put back the ring that I loosened earlier. Oh, wrong way. Need these notches on top. And this is also a matter of gently trying when it catches, so you mustn't force it on those first turns, and it's just a matter of a little patience. I think it catches now. No, not yet. Try it with my hands. Come on. Cooperate. Yeah, there we are. And the last bit, to tighten it, for that bit we use the lens wrench again. There we are. So that is in place. Still working. I'm so happy with this. I'll turn it around. Position the aperture ring back, and like I said on the dismantling, the disassembly, here is a notch and here is a tiny little pin, and it has to go over that pin, and when you turn it, it's in the right position. So, can show that. Here is also a pin here, and that goes in this notch, and that limits, that's a hard stop for the aperture. So there it is. Right, and you notice that I removed the click ball, because I'm going to use this for a video. The click ball, alright, it's a bonus from this video. The click ball sits over here. So if you remove that, you get rid of the clicks, which, if you can see it, clicked over these little notches over there. So that's an extra takeaway from this video, how to declick the Pentacon 135mm lens. There it is. Alright, now the mounting plate contains this lever, and this lever is with this pin sits inside this opening, and this curve pushes in and out this pin, and hence the whole mechanism. And this mechanism here controls the pin that we've seen before. So to put it back, I'll have to look, and I don't know if you can see that on screen, I have to look from under an angle inside the lens and see if the hook from this part catches the control pin. But I forgot the rear element. Otherwise it would be a worthless lens. I bet you were screaming already behind your screen, "You forgot the rear element, you forgot the rear element." Thanks for shouting. Okay, there we go again. And you need to put the switch to automatic, because then in automatic mode this lever can move freely. If you put it to manual, then it is controlled by a spring. A spring is in here, so when you control this, it springs back into the original position. But in the auto mode, it always is in the outward position, and the reason is that you remember the spring in this pin that moves this one in the open position, and that was the purpose of the auto position of this lens, because when you're focusing on your subject, the aperture only closes when you make a picture, and that is controlled by this little pin. So in the auto mode, when you make a photo, this pin is controlled, and then the aperture only closes when you make a picture. So that is how that works. And if you put it in manual mode, you have always the aperture position according to what you set on the ring here. But for mounting purposes, it is best to have it in the auto position, so it can move freely, and it's also a little fiddly. Give me a moment, because it's dark inside the lens. Oh, there, I think I have it. So, and then you, when it catches, You just move it back and forth, and then it falls in position. Now, just to check if it's right, I put the lens in manual position and see if it reacts to the movement of the ring, and it does. See? So we are very close to the finalization, if that's a correct English word, to the final assembly of the lens. I put back in those 4 screws that I removed in the beginning. Come on, straight please. There we go, and this one. There we are. Tighten them with the screwdriver. And if you're an automotive engine engineer, then you know that you have to tighten them in a cross way. So first, always the opposite screws, so you can in fact distribute the tension evenly. And what I also do is just tighten them a little bit, so they're loosely in place now, and then I give them all a few extra turns for the final fit. So there it is. Still working, right? See if it also works when I change the focus. It's still working, because what happens, and you can't see it because I've closed it, but when you focus, the whole assembly goes up and down, if you will. And so that means that, that's the reason of the spin that controls the aperture control ring has this length, because it slides inside that lever, which sits here, that moves horizontally. So when you focus to 33 centimeters or whatever the closest distance is, the whole aperture assembly moves outward. And that is the problem, that was the problem with this lens, that in this position it got stuck. But now that is repaired. Okay, well, close to the final assembly. Put back the front elements. There it is. Find this very little screw, and it's a bit annoying because it sits half behind this this other part, but with a screwdriver that's small enough, it's okay, and you don't need to tighten it very hard. So this is okay. It works. Last check. Okay, last check. Yeah. Focus. Done. Thank you for watching.